So we get out of the car and they kind of flank me on either side and we just start walking forward. I'm sort of like just prompted by what they're doing by following them around, or sort of meandering forward whether I wanted to or not. Never met an empath strong enough to control someone else. I'd heard of it, but I didn't know it was real. So that's the only thing I can think of is what the passenger of the Men in Black were. Some powerful, powerful empath. So in we go, inside through the armed guards and into an elevator and down, 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 down. Now, I have been trained for observation. Every detail of what I saw, how long it took me, how many floors I went down, how many levels we went to, and I was at least 13 floors down in the backside of NORAD. We walked first through a bunch of different things. It's sort of like the soonest thing we came to. We walked up the stairs, and so the hallway was concrete, okay? And above me was conduit. Being a builder and remodeler and stuff like that, I'm very familiar with building. Concrete poured hallways, rounded, okay, like an arch. And then all down the ceilings were conduit holding the electrical with, different lights, fluorescent fixtures, enough to be able to see down these hallways. And then we went up to another elevator. It's as if we went to a different section, and then we walked across a long section and we went down further. And then we came out and then walked up to another section and walked upstairs and into a room, which I thought was odd, wondering where we were. And so we walk up to kind of a big square rectangle thing, and they hit a button and blast doors move back, metal blast doors, and there is like this glass, this really thick glass. And so they walk up to it and turn out. So I walk up to it and I look down, and about 6 stories down and about 4 football fields out is a giant hangar. I looked up and I can't see, it's so dark up above. I'm unable to see if there is a hatch. I'm thinking to myself, we're in the middle of a mountain. How are they getting out and in and out of this mountain? And down below, when I looked down, all across, it was like this graveyard. It was weird. It was like all of these different kinds of aircraft, all down there. And there's some old stuff from World War I, II, there's some ships. There was some weird, not just aircraft, but some watercraft in there too, just hanging out down on this thing. Then I realized, looking about 75 yards out and about down at 11 o'clock, there's a saucer, like your normal, what you would normally, a round saucer sitting there. So I start looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, what is that? And when I saw it, it's like the only thing I can think of is like, oh my God, do you see that? Cause in my mind, I just saw a flying UFO, well, it wasn't flying, a UFO for the very first time in my life. And I needed, do you see that? To the guys that were with me, these men in black that were with me, is my only reaction that I could think of. And as soon as they saw that I saw it, they started to walk away, and I was being pulled away again. Now, closing my eyes and going back into the moment that I looked down onto that thing, it had USAF and numbers. So it was military, our military. I don't know if we made it. I don't know if they reverse engineered. I could only see the top. I couldn't see the bottom. I couldn't see if it was hovering or sitting on something. I didn't see if it was sitting on landing gear or anything like that. I just saw the top of it from 75 yards out, about 6 stories down or so. So off we go again. Down hallways, up and over to a completely whole, like we take the elevator up, we walk through a whole other section, we go back down again. And we're in a completely different area. Now we're in an area that's offices. drywall, ceiling tiles, office space looking type things. And I remember walking into this area and I was like, okay, this is interesting. And so we go in and they walk up and there was a man standing there and he's in a white coat, like a lab coat. He's wearing a light blue shirt underneath it and a tie. And he's got a little pocket protector and things in his pocket protector thing. And he was standing there very anxious. Now, when he saw me walking up, I couldn't tell if he was afraid of the men that was with me or just anxious about the entire situation, but he was waiting for me. And so I walked up and he said, so there was a room inside of a greater room. And we walked up in a hallway. One of the gentlemen stopped into the hallway. He stayed there. The other one that was the empath or whatever he was came into the inner room with me. And there was all these controls and then a door to go into a smaller room. He just stayed there by the front door of the exterior room. So I walked in and the scientist just started talking to me and he's just going on and on and on this gibberish about technology and reverse engineering and excited about the geeky aspects of the scientific stuff he was working on. I didn't understand. And then he went inside of this room and he took a Pepsi can from this workstation and he walked inside of a room and he walked up to the thing. It looks like a Keurig now, you know, like a Keurig, like a square thing, and he had this glass, fiberglass, like or something. And he lifted it up and he put the Pepsi can in there. He shut it back down again. I followed him back out of the room. He shut the door. He's looking inside of this observation window into this interior room where we left this Pepsi can in this thing. And he's talking and do. And then he's got this big smile on his face and he points over there to another machine on the other side of the room. And I look at it and he says, and I'm like, I follow him into the room and the Pepsi can is on a separate side of the room. I said, bullshit. He said, yes. Everybody that says it the very first time thinks it's a trick. Okay. So he takes something out of his pen, out of his pocket. He scratches the bottom right of the can, right? Scratches it, puts it back in there, shuts it. We walk back around again. And while he's messing around, he points and said, don't take your eye off of that. He's continuing to mess around on the control thing. And then he points over that way. And so I look over that way and I glance back and just like on Star Trek, I kid you not, it dematerializes that can. And then he points and I look over there and it rematerializes. And then I screamed bullshit this time because it scared me. Interesting how people react, how human beings react to that. And so we go inside. I'm almost knocking him over at this point to grab the can myself. There's a little bit of liquid in it, about this much in the bottom of the can. And there's the scratch, exactly the way he had put it on there before. And I was like, how do you get this? What is this? How did you get this? And he started to say something, and as if somebody had choked him off. Then all of a sudden that one was standing there, the passenger from the car. He was standing there, and then the scientist could no longer speak. And then he got really nervous and really upset and sort of like ran out of the room. So I turn, I'm being dragged along, we turn and we start to go again. We're walking along and I'm just reflecting on what I just saw. And I'm thinking to myself, what is going on here? So along we go to a whole other section. As we're walking, I don't know if it's just the area we're going into or the realization that I had already been there for several hours. We've been all over the mountain. And I'm starting to get concerned as to the reason why I'm there. And so we're walking along. We come into an area. We walked out of the area that was all like labs and stuff like that, and through another concrete barrier area, and then into another area where it was drywall and everything again. But this time, there was like a smell of a hospital in the next one that we went into. I don't like it. I don't like the way it feels. I don't like going to hospitals. Somebody who's a medium, it's tough navigating hospitals. So I kind of had that same feeling coming into this area. And they end up walking me into a room, a smaller rectangular type thing, and they go up and they open a shade. Shades come back, and there's looking into a smaller room in this room. And inside a smaller room, there is a gurney, a metal gurney. And on top of that, and under this plexiglass or something that was round, that went over the top of it, was a 6 foot tall one of these things, Zetas. It was dead. And I don't know why. I don't know, youth, ignorance. I decided I was going to go, I was like, these people really don't know me. Don't they know that I can go into a being and see their last moments? They're trying to fool me. Why are they trying to put mannequins here? Are they trying to trick me? I mean, it's extraordinary to the links to what the brain will do to try not to accept what's going on in front of you, especially when it's so out of your paradigm. And so I closed my eyes and I went in and I experienced the last moments of that being's death. And it was a real thing and it really did die and it freaked me out and I kind of snapped out of it and I started shaking and crying. I started shaking and crying because I thought, oh my God, they're going to do to me what they did to this thing. I have no idea what's happening here. Are they going to kill me? Oh my God, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And I just quietly cried to myself while we walked away and walked down many more hallways through many different, and I was kind of not paying attention at that point. To be quite honest with you, up to that point, I was really paying attention to every place I went in that mountain. Mapping it out in my mind, designing what compartments were where and how it was put together. After I saw that and felt that, this thing was being tortured for information. It was horrific. And I'm gonna die. It's just what it is. They brought me in here to kill me. And so I went along for a while and got brought into a room with a big conference table, and they took me to the very end of the room away from the door, and I sat down at the end and they flanked either side of me. Still have not said a word to me this entire time. About 45 minutes later, it was a long time, and I got to sit there thinking I was going to die that entire time. A gentleman walks in the front and walks in the door, and he's wearing a jumpsuit, a flight suit. So something that pilots wear. And it's like you get into it and you zip it up. And in that, there was the name and the rank had been removed. The affiliation to what, because every time that you're assigned to something, you have an affiliation patch as to what your job is and what you're assigned to, and that was removed. And so he walks in, he looked to be about, 55 years old, rank, just reeked of high-ranking official. Just the way he carried himself, the way he spoke. He came in and he sat down at the other end of the table and he looked at me for a long time. And I just literally holding my breath. And he said, now that you know, stop digging. Excuse me, what? Now that I know what? Now that you know, stop digging. This is your last warning. Excuse me? And then he proceeded to name off my adopted parents and their address. My adopted parents had just gotten a divorce. He knew where my father, adopted dad was, my adopted mom was. 6 months prior, I'd just been reunited with my biological mother and family. He named her and where they live. And it was like I was starting to get pretty clear he was threatening me. He knew where all of the people in my life lived. And it terrified me. And so, after some time of just threatening me and telling me to stop digging and stop making phone calls, I blanked out. I don't even remember finishing the conversation until years later. That's another story. But I basically came to, like literally, was aware of my surroundings, standing in the middle of my apartment complex. Well, it wasn't my apartment anymore. It was my ex-girlfriend's apartment. And I was standing there just staring at the wall. And I looked at my watch, and it was 8 hours later. 8 hours after being taken. I'm standing in the apartment, and it's weird because Gina's not there, my ex. Where is she? It's 8 o'clock at night. What's going on? I ran outside like, oh my God, they're gonna fire me. My truck is not back to the thing. Truck was gone, my car is there. So I came to wondering if the entire thing was in my head or, yeah, it happened. Everything in me told me it happened. It scared me so badly that I left Colorado Springs. I left with just the things that will fit in my truck, my tools. I didn't have a checking account. I didn't have a credit card. I didn't carry a cell phone. I was completely untraceable for about 9 years. I went completely off the grid. Whatever happened there scared me so badly. It's almost like it became a directive that would live so deeply in my subconscious to run that I did. I ran long and hard. I looked for answers. I didn't speak about this again. I didn't speak about this for 10 years, longer than that. I didn't start speaking about this again until I met the director of Extraordinary, the Seeding, John and Jack, at the Paranormal Research Forum in Denver in 2009. I didn't speak about it until then. And I started to speak about it again because things started happening again. So that's how I met Jack and John. And we developed quite a friendship and a trust, because I would have never done this with anybody else. With the integrity that they have created this film and the way which they have expressed our experience, the experiencers. It's about time someone told our story. This is our story. And it's best that we speak it, that the experiences ourselves come out and talk about this. Yeah, what do I say to people who think this is made up or just a dream? You know, I know how hard it was for me when it was happening to me, during it was happening to me, years after when it was happening to me, all the way up until 2009, when the high strangeness and things that were happening around me I just couldn't ignore anymore. I'm not really sure what to say, because our paradigm, our belief systems are so hard. They're hardened. They're like inflexible, the way that we're taught here on this planet. And so it's extremely challenging that when you're facing something that not only challenges your question of who you are on this planet, but who you are in the whole scheme of things. Paradigm, like I've mentioned a couple times about breaking the paradigm and breaking the belief system. And in my experience, when confronted with all of this, I had to move through several levels of shock to integrate. And if it wasn't for the fact that it continued to happen and continues to happen to this day, and if it was just one single thing that happened, I don't know, maybe I could be convinced it was a dream, but it doesn't stop. I don't have visitations from the Zetas anymore. I broke that contract. I told them I no longer wanted to be a part of the hybridization program, and to date, that wish has been respected. Now, what am I doing? Here's what I say to people. Like a new frontier, like, okay, say you're going to a new place. Say you've never traveled the world and you're leaving to a new country for the first time in your life. When you arrive, things are so different than the way that you have experienced it. Now you can fight that feeling. You can have a hard time on your vacation or on your trip, or you can accept it. You can accept other people's belief systems that don't necessarily coincide with yours. You can accept their way of life, even though it's extremely different. I also liken it to scientists, physicists, those continuing to look into areas that we don't know, that we haven't experienced yet. The very first time for electricity, the very first time we get fire, the very first time, it's like holding that perception with an ability to allow your mind to be changed. Can we learn to live with one another even though our belief systems or what we may believe or not believe don't match? I'm not trying to convince you. In fact, I know that all I need to do is hang out just a little bit longer and they're going to be flying around up there without any kind of interruption. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. It's just logic. Given time, this is going to start happening openly and in the public. I'm not saying abductions and hybridization programs. I'm talking about interactions between us and the many other galactic beings that are out there. I've been fortunate enough to, well, I didn't love meeting the Zetas. No, I didn't love that at all. Didn't like it. I have had the fortunate ability to meet a Lyran. These are beings that look like us. They're hominoid, except they're covered with a little bit of fur all over, light hair like we are, and they are cat-like beings. So, I don't know. It really seems a shame. And if you're at all into science and mathematics, it's almost a mathematical impossibility that there is another life out there. We're in a young universe. This is a young galaxy in our universe, and we are now able to actually see past multiple universes and multiple galaxies and on 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 and on. Our scientists have already found planets in the Golden Belt, places where there could be life in other solar systems. Just mathematically impossible. I would say, open your mind. Nobody's trying to take away what you believe in. Nobody's trying to say that your belief in God or your spiritual beliefs at all have to end or have to stop with regard to this. In fact, if you believe in God, why wouldn't God be making multiple creatures all over the place? That's what I'd do if I was God. Just be having fun making things everywhere. So, if I wouldn't have been forced to deal with this in my own life, I don't think I would have really developed an opinion one way or the other until the UFOs or extraterrestrials or galactic brothers and sisters or whatever we want to call them started walking around here on the planet, which is going to happen. Just be patient. It's coming. It's here, actually. Any one of you has any telescopes, you're amateur astrologers, I would say start looking around the sun right now. You're going to see a lot of stuff. If you want to see, if you're open to shifting your paradigm to allow for more information to come in, because that's all it is more information, then there's much more to be known, much more to be understood, and so on, like who we are and our place in the galaxy. And it's that simple. It's that logical. But we're coming into that time, and we will all know very soon. I was living in Manitou Springs, and I was dating a woman named Gina. We had a 2-bedroom apartment, ground floor apartment. It was late. We'd gone to bed, and I heard this blood-curdling scream. And I woke up, and I rolled over, and I looked at the clock, and it said 12:36 a.m. And then my girlfriend got up out of the bed, didn't say anything, walked into the bathroom, didn't turn the light on, shut the door, and I heard the toilet seat cover come up, and I heard her sit down, and I was facing the bathroom door, and I thought, that's odd. And then I felt really pulled back into sleep quickly. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and everything in me was an alarm, like danger, danger, danger. And I opened my eyes, and standing against the wall next to the bathroom door
was this little gray creature, and it scared me really badly. I had a lot of adrenaline go through my body, and I tried to move, and I couldn't move. And I struggled against that, and I tried to fight it. I tried to fight it mentally. I tried to fight it physically. Each time I would do this gray being kept getting closer to the bed. And as I was getting a hold of myself, this time I came awake, I opened my eyes, and I looked right at it, and I heard clearly this time, "Be still. We aren't here to hurt you. We are only here to check on you." As that was happening, I started to have these flashbacks. A flash of being on a gurney being moved down a hallway, a flash of being in a bright lit room, a flash of them being over me, leaning over my stomach, and then it made me panic and pass out again. At some point, this horrific experience ended, where all at the same time, my girlfriend throws open the door, turns on the light, and I looked over at the clock, and it was like 4 hours later. I called a friend of mine out of this women's spiritual group in Manitou Springs. I said, "Please come over, I need some help. Something crazy happened last night." Looks me up and down, she tilts her head and she goes, "Sierra, are you pregnant?" So I told her everything. And she's like, "Okay, yep, makes sense." And I'm like, "Would you please just tell me what's happening?" And that's when she broke down the whole Zeta hybridization program in detail. And I just sat there shaking my head going, this is a bunch of nonsense. I'm not bisexual, I don't have a relationship with men, so it's like, how am I pregnant? It was probably about a week and a half later, I sat straight up in bed and I screamed. And my stomach was flat and I was like, it's gone. The baby's not there anymore.